All right, call this meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There wasn't no changes to the agenda, so can I get approval of the agenda?
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, if you just
Opposed?
want to know, A and 8A and 9 are switched.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna do the informational items before 8A, just so everybody knows. We have a proposed part of the meeting we have to do, so. We're on the 3 open forum. If anybody would like to speak, Sean, if you'd like to speak.
Yeah.
If you want to come up to the mic.
And then, Sean, if
State
you
your
could tell us your address, please, for the record.
Sounds good. My name's Sean Meyer. I live in Daylight Court on 516 11th Avenue Northeast. And Rick and myself just basically wanted to come here and at least show you guys that our neighborhood is definitely ready for the sidewalk that we've kind of been waiting for since this spring, and we know that's on the docket, and there's talk about waiting until next spring with it. And I guess our biggest concern with that, we know it's going to happen, we know you guys got it budgeted and a grant for it, but if it does hold off until spring, our biggest worry is that it's not going to happen in April, it's not going to happen in May, it's going to get pushed to June, and then it's not going to get done until July, and we're going to have another half of our year without a sidewalk. So we sent out emails to city council members with kind of some bullet points with it being a safety concern. The development is now full. I think there's 16 families and over, I think, 24 kids that are in that neighborhood, and we just wanted to be here to make sure everybody knows that we're ready to have a connection point to the other sidewalks in town. So, thank you.
All right, thanks, Sean. All right. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on open forum? What? Did you sign up? Oh, okay. All right. We are on the consent agenda. The approval of the bills, minutes, purchase orders. There is a couple donations, 2023-50, $750 from Stearns Electric Association to the Melrose Ambulance Department. Resolution number 2023-51, a donation of $500 from Blattner Companies towards Melrose Fire Relief. 2023-52, it's $250 from Land O'Lakes to the Melrose Fire Department for the pancake feed. There is a pay app number 4 from Molitor Construction. Then there's also a gambling resolution. Questions? John?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. I'm on a broadside Brian because obviously he wasn't here when these CDs and stuff got taken out. But I noticed on the investments that we've got, sizable amounts of our fund cash, locked up for 4 years at 0.8%. And I remember talking about this a number of years ago. Obviously, they were probably done a couple of years ago before Ryan got here, but that we were going to invest the money in short-term CDs because we felt like interest rates were going to move higher pretty quickly. And so I'm kind of, not that we can do anything about it now, but if we could check into what it would cost to break these CDs and get them in higher interest rate CDs, that'd be awesome. So,
I
okay.
can definitely talk to Jack.
Okay, sounds good, thanks. And then the pay app number 4, Molitor Construction, is that, because I looked, could we include what street these are for when we get the big pay?
Sure.
Because it just says road construction or 2024 project.
So it's for 4th, 7th, Mustang, and 3rd? No.
Fourth?
Yeah, a small portion.
Third?
Okay,
So it's the street projects that we just finished?
so that's pretty much citywide.
Yep, so
So
for.
Molitor had all the,
Yep,
all
except
the
for we
contracts.
do have a project coming up with Aztec,
okay,
which will be 8th, 12th,
right,
Railroad,
that's the,
and something else.
and that's the 3/4 inch mill.
Third, yeah.
Okay, and then on that pay voucher, I noticed there's $55,000 charge for dewatering. That must have been on Fourth, I would assume.
Yep.
Did we have that budgeted, or was that like a, oops, we ran into a lot more water than we thought we were going to?
That was included with it.
It was, okay, okay, good. I wasn't sure, because that dewatering truck was sitting there for a long time.
Yes.
So,
There's a lot of dewatering that had to be done on that
right,
street.
okay, we're good.
All right. Anything else? Can I get a motion to approve?
So move.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We're on the reports. Police chief report.
Good evening. Our August 2023 numbers, we had 8 citations, 10 verbal warnings and written warnings. 2023, 181 calls to request for service, last year was 273. 2022 headed on ICR 295, this year was 1967. Agency assists were at 22, so about 10% less than we normally are at, or I should say 30% less than what we're normally at there. Numbers are down. We've had staffing issues all summer, so a little less proactive activity from the department, but things are coming back around. We're training an officer right now. We have the other officer back from family medical leave, and then in a month we should be closer to full staff, but I would say late October will be when we're back to full staff. The training goes well with our new officer, so things are kind of at the department. School's going well. We have had very few issues with the crossing guards or school buses, so I appreciate the public's help on that. Hopefully that continues the rest of the year so we are safe. Another area, your abatement from last month for the 530 Main Street East project, that has been satisfied, so we don't have to move forward with any court action, Scott's time, or anything else. Hopefully that property maintains that for next year and the years to come. We would see a repeat one for small payments each year, so we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Thanks, chief. City attorney report, Scott?
Just a couple of things. The closing on the Granite City out on the west end of town got wrapped up since our last meeting. It's complete. And then been working with the city staff to get the Railroad Avenue easements that we need to for that project prepared in place so that we move forward soon. That's all I've got now, unless you have questions.
No. Thank you, Scott. Finance director report.
Should have each received the second quarter financial report. There's just a few highlights throughout that I wanted to point out. In the general fund, taxes are usually received in June, July, and then again in December. We actually received both of them in June this year, so taxes are sitting at about 50% right where we want to be for the year. Licenses and permits, we are up over budget for the year, and that mainly due to building permits. We had over 3 times the amount in the second quarter sold this year than last year. For the year, we're up to $67,000 worth of building permits. Miscellaneous revenue is also over budget, and that's just because we didn't budget anything for interest expense, but we're actually earning interest on our investments this year, which was great because last year we didn't earn anything. So, general fund expenditures, assessing fees are almost at 100%. Those are completely paid for the year. We already paid the county. Won't have to worry about that again until next year. Building inspection fees are right now sitting at 7%, and that's just because second quarter fees weren't paid until July. So you can take that $31,000 down, another $60,000 for building permits in the second quarter. Everything else is sitting right where we want to be, about 40 to 50%. Besides the snow and ice removal, but we all remember last winter, that's why that one's so high already. Moving along, NATA was business as usual. Special revenue funds, there was 2 funds in special revenues. The fire grant fund for the 400 block fire. All the expenditures were spent by June 30th of 2023, which was a stipulation of that by our developer next door. So that amount was recognized as revenue and then paid out in the second quarter. We still have the ARPA funds sitting around, which has been earmarked for the housing development rest of the town. So, capital improvement funds. The tax revenue is sitting right now at 12%. We didn't get Genio's first tip payment of the year. It was a timing issue with the county. I didn't talk to them. That'll be coming with the next round of tax payments. The only other one I wanted to touch on, ambulance fund. I apologize for not having second quarter numbers. I'm still waiting on our billing provider, but we will talk about that further down the agenda. And then debt service fund, all debt service payments have been made for the year. Right now we're sitting well there as well. So, anybody have any questions on the second quarter?
Good. That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Community Development Director, Sheila.
Okay, you had my report in the packet, but we've had lots of updates. In the Sauk River Park, the restroom officially opened today. We passed an inspection with the Stearns County Environmental Services, so the restroom down there is open for our final campers of the season. The basketball court, as you can see, Gary and his guys have it ready to pour as soon as Moining is ready, which I'm hearing now might be Monday, if I'm not mistaken. All around town, you see Gary and the guys popping up some little cement pads. Our benches, after 2 years, have finally arrived. And so Gary is out installing the memorial benches. The 2 you see at the end of the sidewalk as you walked in, I think the one on the one side is for George O'Brien and the other one is for Bonnie Hughes. There's the other ones just popping up all over town. There's a really nice program that people were sponsoring benches. We just had to wait a long time for them to come in. So they're busy getting that done. As Scott mentioned, Granite City, the closing occurred. They are out moving dirt right now. Their building permit has been approved. So they are starting to work on the footings for the 73-unit apartment building out on the west side. Colleen and I attended the Melrose Township meeting a couple of weeks ago. That went very well. We just basically wanted to stay in contact with them about the railroad project and the use of the bypass road during that project. Riverside Flats next door has been exciting to watch. The crane was the talk of the town last weekend. Mr. Goman is here. He has action items on the agenda later, so I'm sure he'd be glad to answer any questions you have about that. Quick Trip now is starting their geo-piers for the store, which is their final piece. They had a successful job fair here at City Center today, so they are moving forward. We had our first steering committee meeting last Thursday night. It was a really good group. It was a really good discussion. We are excited about that project. We've also been working on other engagement activities, including attending both nights of the open house up at school, promoting the plans and the projects. The rehab grant loan program targeted at Main Street and C2 district has been going well. We've sent out over 10 applications. 2 have been approved. We're waiting for some of them to come back. The subcommittee of MATA has been out touring sites before they approve the loans. And so that's been fun to go out and talk to the property owners. So as we look at the really big projects in town, there's some really exciting things happening within the small businesses around Main Street as well that we're excited about. And there's other opportunities for some redevelopment that we're working on. I provided an update on the Main Street project. We're going to be working with Stearns County on a possibility of some grant funding to take care of some of our costs on the Main Street project. We will give you an update on that as we start to develop that. And then just 2 final pieces of information. The Arts Council is going to unveil the Welcome to Melrose sign next Friday over lunch, over the lunch hour. So they want to invite everyone to come over to the sign. I think the program is 11:30 to 1, I believe. So I want to just send a shout out to the city staff, Gary and his guys, for doing all the excavation to get that project ready. And Steve and his guys have completed the lighting, so once it is unveiled, it will be lit. So you're all invited over there. It's on homecoming day, so they've timed it out with homecoming, so it'll be on Friday the 29th. And also, I'm sure the mayor was going to add this, but the fire department is having a breakfast, their first annual breakfast, on Sunday, October 8th. Talked to a fireman about some tickets. I'm sure the mayor would be glad to help you with that. And that's all I have.
Thanks for helping me out on that one. All right, city engineer report.
All right, good evening. Start with a construction update. As Sheila mentioned, there's a lot going on in town. Most of it I've got Hampton, something anyway. The sidewalk is obviously later on the agenda. We'll discuss that when that action item comes up. 2023 street project, the wearing course put on. We got a few punch list items out there for the contractors, some things that we think we can maybe improve a little bit or maybe work out. Otherwise, work is mostly complete on that one. Put our request today that they clean up all their barricades and sand things and stuff so people can get their lawn mowed before the leaves really start falling here. So hopefully that'll happen quickly here. Railroad Avenue project, we'll be looking to start dewatering work next week out there. Followed by construction starting in 1 week and a half after that. So that takes a little while for the water to take to come down. So we'll see a little delay once that dewatering is going, but hopefully we'll smooth that out. So I'll do residents tonight and then keep visiting the loops so that they're not too highly inconvenienced. I believe mentioned Aztec in town for the portion of the ultimate bottom wear course that's going to happen again. That's looking like what we can have off first week of October in town there. So I'll look for some hopefully relatively minor inconvenience, but certainly going to get impact for the people around those roads. 12 paved railroad and 1 block for so I imagine we work to put out some press release or something like that to ensure it meets. Otherwise, that is my list for the evening. Unless you guys have questions for me.
Thank you. City administrator report.
Just to add a little bit on to what Sheila talked about for the fire, the breakfast, there's also a coloring contest with that. So children can pick up their coloring sheets here at City Center. I'm not sure where else around town they have those coloring sheets, but the winning, my understanding is the coloring winner is able to get a ride in a fire truck, I think. So that's a pretty exciting thing. Just to give you updates as far as the public utility side, so the wastewater treatment plant, we are very close to finishing that project up. The main issues yet to be resolved are related to the screens in the Headworks building. So we're trying to work through some of that right now. The company that we're dealing with is out of Arkansas, I believe, so they're going to be up here next week. There is still from the RDB project, we feel that there's the county's still holding on to some money there because we as the city do not feel that the final payment should be made because we believe that WSB owes us some additional items related to the dam. So we're holding tight on releasing that funding until we hear back from WSB. We have been looking at generation with Missouri River Energy Services. They have requested that we add additional generation in town. And we are currently exploring where that capacity could go and what sites. It's got to be located next or as close as possible to the east substation. So our focus has primarily been in that area over there. As Craig mentioned, it's fortunately I think we're very close to being full staff on the police department. The electric guys have done a great job this summer considering they were very short-staffed. Again, a shout out to Steve and his crew, but also to Gary and his crew for stepping in when they needed to help them out. The PUC has hired David Drown Associates, who is an employee recruitment firm, to conduct a job search for the electric supervisor position. And we are hoping that we get some applicants out of that particular search. So that is all I have for now, Mr. Mayor and Council.
All right. Is there any questions? All right. We are on to action items. This will be resolution adopting proposed tax levy, approving 2023 tax levy collectible in 2024. Mr. Meyer.
In front of the council tonight is the 2024 preliminary budget and tax levy. Over the past couple of months, staff has held strategic meetings with department heads, the city engineer, and city staff to get a clear scope of what the projects and needs are for the city. This was brought to the council for review at the August 24th workshop meeting. The The city has a number of projects already underway or in development, such as the Railroad West project, the active transportation infrastructure project, the sidewalk, the Main Street project, the First Street project. There's maintenance and security needs, street improvements, and other equipment purchases that were all taken into account when we prepared the budget and capital plan. The budget document that you received had a few changes based on discussion from the August 24th workshop meeting, including moving the First Street project from 2025 into next year, and then pushing out the Railroad West cul-de-sacs into later years. There was also an increase to parks overtime as a return to normal amount, now that construction at the park is almost over. And there was also an increase to the parks set-aside amount, which is usually $20,000 a year. That was increased to $30,000 a year. And then there were several changes to the ambulance department budget to account for the changes necessary for the anticipated ALS certification. The ambulance department changes were discussed further in the 2024 ambulance budget supplementary report that was included in the budget documents with this agenda, and include changes to the fee schedule, billing provider, and job descriptions, which we will discuss later on in the agenda, as well as changes to the wage scale. So for 2024, the general fund has a preliminary budget expenditures of $3,481,864. We also have a large capital budget plan for next year, with all the capital expenditure accounts totaling $3,497,935. Throughout this process, there's been a number of unknowns. We are required to certify our proposed tax levy to the county no later than September 30th, which is a Saturday this year, so we have until the 29th. And we will submit the final levy in December. As a reminder, the levy can be reduced, it just can't be raised from where we set it today. So what we are proposing tonight is to certify the preliminary levy for the general fund at $1.55 million, and the debt levy at $90,000, for a total levy of $1,640,000. That will result in an estimated tax rate of 52.68%, which is about a 5% increase from the 2023 tax rate. It is expected that the final levy that is brought to the council for approval in December will decrease from this current amount, and the tax rate will be more in line with this year's levy. So, in addition to the levy, we also have to certify the truth in taxation information, and we are looking to hold that hearing on December 14th at 6 o'clock. Does anybody have any questions on the proposed budget? Otherwise, we're looking to approve the rest.
All right, so the council will take action on the proposed resolution. Can I get a motion to approve?
Being we had a budget workshop, talked about it, this is preliminary, it will go down. I mean, I know we had discussed that's the final number. So as part of this is where the estimated tax forms from Stearns County come out for 2024, right?
Yes.
Every year there's a lot of excited people because they get that estimated tax burden for 2024, and it always goes up. But our final levy as I've been on for 14 years, it's always down where we estimate it. So
We just do it, some
we do it as
catastrophic.
a safety net thing. In my mind, I kind of question, should we really do this $200,000 safety net that we, early on, because there's a lot of people that get their estimated taxes, and we can't go up from here.
Yeah.
But we have lots of reserves. If we can't go up and something comes up in additional expenditure, we can absorb that $200,000 pretty easy. So, I mean, this year, fine, let's leave it where it is because we've hashed it over at our budget meeting, but I think we should have a discussion next year about getting closer to our final number so that when people get their estimated taxes next year, it's a lot closer to what it really actually will be. Does that make sense? And not just for Ryan, but for all of us here, whatever, think about, so. All right.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Then the council will take action on, to approve the preliminary 2024 budget. Can I get a motion to approve?
Make a motion.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Resolution number 2023-56, resolution approving conditional use permit requested by Franklin Outdoor Advertising for a billboard.
Yes, at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on August 28th, the Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing at the request of Franklin Outdoor Advertising. The applicant wants to install a stacked sign with 4 advertisers, 2 boards on each side. There you go. So, billboards are allowed in this district by a conditional use permit. The property is owned by Ronald and Nancy Winter. The Planning Commission recommends to the council that the conditional use permit be approved.
Just to give you some background, as you're traveling down Craft Drive, instead of taking a left to go on 12th over toward Ron's, just go straight off. And that's about where the billboard would be. And that is a mock picture of what the billboard would look like. Brad from Franklin Outdoors is in attendance here tonight, in case anyone has any questions.
Just by the, by the looks of it, is that set off to the right of, kind of to the right of the blue sign?
It's where the blue dot is. There currently
Okay.
is not a board there.
No, he's talking
on
about
the
the white, the blue sign.
It's off the right of way, okay, all right. That's all I was wondering. I couldn't tell if that was, you know,
Yeah.
like right in front of it before you got there,
Has to
or,
be off the right.
yeah, right, okay.
He has all of his permits from Stearns County, and
Right.
you have your planning report that I,
All right. Well, no big deal.
Simple enough, yep.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve?
I make a motion.
Second,
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. Okay. Medical billing services. I didn't read that one really well.
So the city currently contracts with expert billing for ambulance billing services. Historically, there's been issues with the accuracy of the reports provided by expert billing. And recently, we've had difficulties contacting their support about missing remittances and for payments that we've received. As of the end of August, when we made these reports, we were missing remittances from May through August of this year. These inaccuracies and delays have been causing frustrations for not only our patients, but a lot of additional work for myself and Stacy. Staff contacted 2 other municipal ambulance departments to get their feedback on other billing providers, both of which use EMS management consultants. One of the departments made the switch from expert billing to EMS MC a few years ago due to department experience and the same inaccuracies and delays that we have been experiencing. And this department noted that since the switch, collections have increased approximately $25,000 a year. And last year was the first time they had $0 in write-offs due to non-collections. We did receive a quote from EMS management consultants, which amounts to 5.75% of the net collections, which is all payments received minus any deductions from those fees. This differs slightly from experts billings, who charges a flat fee per claim submitted. An analysis was performed showing the estimated cost for EMS-MC compared to expert billing. And then based on the past 3 years, EMS-MC would cost about $5,400 more a year than expert billing, but it would also increase the accuracy and the timeliness of our reporting and alleviating the frustrations and embarrassment of billing errors. If the council would consider new billing provider.
Yep. So, council to give consideration approving a quote from EMS Management Consultants to provide ambulance billing services. Can I get a motion to approve? If you have questions.
Yeah, one quick one. How long is the contract again?
It's a 1 year.
1 year to start?
With expert billing or with the new contract?
The new one?
The new one, it's a 2-year, and then it's year to year.
Okay, okay. That sounds good. Thanks. I'll make a motion to approve.
All right.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. County Road 165, 5th Street Northeast Sidewalk, bid award. 168, 169 is attached to it.
All right, good evening again. Open bids a couple weeks ago for the sidewalk out there. Received bids from 2 bidders. Both provided a spring and a fall bid. The spring bid for JR Purchasing Excavating Incorporated on the price was $20,000 cheaper than the fall bid. So if we wait till spring, we would realize the savings of $20,000. And from my standpoint as well, we alleviate some of the concerns I have with cold weather concrete. Cold weather concrete is not ideal. There's some concerns with durability and long lasting lifespan of concrete. So I would personally like to see us wait for spring for a couple of reasons. Understanding that there is an appetite for the sidewalk, and I'm excited to put it in as well. But I think the concerns of waiting as well, to me, outweigh those that in the spring.
Okay. So I did have questions because we did get emails. So according to this, it was 26,000 more.
Yep.
Okay, and we still have to come up with $26,370 on our own because that's what the grant does not cover, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So, so 52,500 if we do it right now, extra we have to come up with
I
then.
don't know the exact.
20,000 extra.
20, yeah.
20. But they said, no, I'm just saying, but we have to, you know, with the, so it's 404,123 would be now, but we are awarded, the grant was 351,725. So isn't that a difference of 26,000 that we have to come up with?
That's the difference between spring and fall.
It's also the difference between the grant received approximately and the bid piece.
Okay,
So we do have a small total to make up already, for spring, and it basically doubles.
And then we have the engineering side of it,
Yeah.
which the grant does not cover.
okay. So that was what I was wondering is, because normally we do it with like the cities, you know, well, like best practices. But if we have to come up with that extra 26, do you really think that's in the better good? I'm just asking. I mean, normally I don't ask the audience, but I'm just asking. Because most people, I mean, I would agree if this is gonna get done, I want it done first thing in the spring because this has driven me nuts just as long as you guys. Rick, I've worked with you, we've talked years and years and years about this too. You know, and it's been bad, that development is, you know, it's what happened out there with the developer. I'm just trying to ask, you know, is it?
Yeah, I mean, more so, we just wanted to be here to show that we want it first thing in the spring, we don't want it, and we understand that Minnesota springs can be
Yeah,
different, but we want it done. because
Yeah.
Whether it's this fall, understand the cold weather concrete thing as well.
Yeah.
But we want it done first thing in the spring is our biggest concern. We don't want it to prolong into summer and further is our biggest thing.
okay.
And
Yeah.
how can we guarantee that?
So
So
there's a
that's
substantial completion in the contract. We have final completion before the 4th of July to ensure we have the first half of summer. I did speak with the contractor, and their desire is to go first thing in the spring.
So we could change that completion date, Dave?
We cannot change their completion date, at least not with a consulting contractor. But they're going to need to get moving right away to meet that deadline.
And then what does
It's
this,
gonna be a, I mean, that's a pretty big project.
It's sizable, there's a lot of.
It's gonna be a 3-month project regardless.
I hope it's not that long, but it's going to take some effort. They're going to have to start first thing.
and what does the school have to do to get this moving? Do you know?
The fence has to come down.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's,
Can we get
that should be
some,
pretty easy.
yeah, can we get some guarantees from the school that it will be done as soon as the frost is out?
Yep.
The grant is good till, for a year,
End of next year.
end of next year. I don't know, if there was a deadline of June 1st on that grant, then that would probably get the job done.
Absolutely.
But
But I think I would want to be with you on that also. I would want it done as soon as possible in the spring. It's hard for me to, 26,000 is a lot. I mean, when we're looking at taxpayer dollars, and I think you know.
This is a 3-month project. Knowing that, it would make very little sense to do it this fall.
Yeah.
Pouring concrete in December.
that's the only thing you worry about now is, might be snowing in a month. You just don't
I
know.
mean, we didn't know if it was a month project or 3 months.
Yeah. But I think if, you know, we just try to push hard, I would really hope that you give them that we really want it done as fast as possible, the right way.
Yeah, the concrete contractors, first thing in the spring is great for them because that's what they're ready to work. Because they have to usually wait for other portions of the work to get completed before they can commit.
Yeah.
So a project like this, that many square yards of concrete is going to be appealing
Okay.
off those roadways.
Could you ask him what a target start date is? I know it weather dependent, but anything, tell him, yeah, we're planning on starting, get that from him, or whatever.
I would
When it starts,
anticipate they
April
would plan on
15th.
starting the day road restrictions come off, I guess.
All right.
I think, you have the council support to put as much fire under this as possible because, yeah, we want to get it done. We want safety for the children too.
But your engineering fees don't go up any higher.
Okay.
I should have been ready for that.
But I am glad that you're here. I mean, I wanted to visit with you. I was getting more numbers after I got an email, and that's what I want to make sure we want to be honest with you too. So, making a motion with the earliest.
Spring.
Earliest
Yeah.
in the spring.
I'll make a
Yes.
motion.
Okay, so that's the motion with that wording?
Yes,
Okay, you have a second?
I have a second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. And you guys have my phone number and email, so you can let me know. You all know where I live too, so. All right.
If you don't see it starting by June, give us a call.
No one's gonna start.
No.
I was gonna say, right.
Ambulance department job descriptions. Gina?
So we put together a few job descriptions to support the new BLS status. The current positions are the transport nurse, paramedic. The qualifications were based on recommendations from our medical director to make sure that these positions have the adequate knowledge and skills to support the more critical patients. We've taken a lot of giant steps in our ALS process, and we have our inspection coming up October 12th.
I'm really excited with this good quality that we're going to be able to give all the patients of the area. I am really excited to see this. All the years of leadership, even with you, Julie, I mean, it's a great department, and it's a needed department for our city to have. So I'm excited for this. So is there any questions? All right, the council to give consideration to approve the paramedics and the transport nurse job description. There's a first.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. And then police department job descriptions.
We also had job description updates. Ours was just updating some old equipment that was listed in there, being able to operate X, Y, Z, which now has current verbiage to, as well as some medics training that we currently have.
John.
That was not part of, or was different in the original job description. So something you realize and notice when you're going through things with hires and whatever else, you're going to do those things and just use it where they're supposed to be. That's all it is for ours.
All right, can I get a motion to approve?
Make a motion?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Now, police department vehicle purchase.
So I'm also looking for pre-authorizations at a cap of $50,000 for the 2024 squad car that we are scheduled for and budgeted for next year. Pricing opens in October, and my hope was to get ahead of the order dates. If it opens October 2nd, we want to council meeting for a few weeks after that. Try and get in on the top of the list instead of the middle of the bottom. Did get word from M40 last week. They are supposed to be building our squad cars or our versions of the squad cars starting at the end of this month. The strike, the picketing, those sorts of things now brings that all into limbo again. But it sounds like there could be a resolution related to that. So hopefully everything is built and put together. We have our 22 squad car here at the end of 23 and then 24 to be built and we get that at a reasonable time. That's right.
I have a little bit of an addendum to that. Sorry, Craig, I hadn't had a chance to talk to you about that. But the pricing that has come in, I think 50,000 is going to put us under too much. I think we have to increase that a little bit. What we're seeing is the average price, I hate to say it, but the average price that is 65,000 is what other departments have quoted their police cars at. And when we looked at some of the state stuff, that's where it was at. So I'm not saying we we are gonna end up that high, but I just think if we put ourselves up at 50,000, it's not gonna be enough. That's my recommendation to the council.
Yeah, no, I don't know what to say.
I mean, it's just supply and demand, and it's just, yeah.
Wow. Everything's ridiculous right now, but.
Correct. We saw the ambulance go up by, which will be on the agenda next month, and just based on that, again, I would hate to have our department short on this, so I would recommend to the council that they look at changing that cap to 65,000.
The council to give consideration authorizing a purchase of a 2024 police vehicle at a cap of $65,000. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion
One
is
question,
carried.
I'll just ask Chief.
Sure.
If there's, I know we like to have our vehicles rotated at certain lengths, but I remember like '07, we started pushing back vehicle purchases and stuff. So if we're gonna start increasing the budget for the cars, I think we should look at what our rotation is and if there's any way to suck more life out of the cars we have.
So squad cars are going out at 10 years, they're roughly at about 125 to 150,000 miles on.
Oh,
That's
okay.
where they're going out at now.
Okay.
What
That's
year-
pushing it out there a ways already.
Yeah, what year is yours?
Mine's a 2013, and I should be getting the 24 in the rotation, but I'm gonna wait until 26 on mine.
The Taurus, that's,
The Taurus is a 14, that's one that we're gonna replace, I guess, soon.
yeah.
65,000.
Yeah.
Somebody's getting rich.
And that's government pricing.
Yeah.
Pricing would be higher.
Right.
So, like you said, somebody's getting rich.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Greg.
No. Thanks, Chief. Ordinance number 9/21/23, an ordinance summarizing and reaffirming fees for city license permits, services establishing a schedule for fees and providing for subsequent, whatever, review, modifications, and amendment. Was there discussion on that?
So just so you guys know, you will be approving a fee schedule that will be adopted for 2024. This is in advance of that, because in order for the ambulance to receive their ALS certification, they did need to raise their fees to be reflective of what is needed for that. So that is what is in front of you this evening.
Can I get a motion to approve?
Do we,
Go ahead.
we didn't get what the old rates were, right?
Yep, it would have been in, sorry, let
I
me
was just
grab that.
curious.
Yeah, we didn't get it that time, I remember.
Yeah, we didn't get nothing in the
Ambulance
council pack,
service,
I don't think. we
I
did.
think it was in the ambulance service provider memo, which I will bring up right now.
I know I see the fees, they're, the 800 for the basic BLS, 15 for ALS, 15 per BLS mileage, 20 for ALS mileage.
There's this, yeah, in the supplement, let me just.
Oh,
yeah.
current, okay. So it's going up a little bit, but
Yep,
we haven't raised rates in 20 years,
not for a long time.
probably? So, okay, I was just curious what we were going from and to, so it wasn't like,
So yep, it was in the ambulance
so it wasn't
supplemental
like
budget.
purchasing a police vehicle this year? Yeah. So,
All right.
okay, I'll second that.
There's a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. We are on old business. Cannabis. Who's gonna,
Yeah, we joke about the fact that we're not gonna have a council meeting where we don't talk about cannabis, and we really thought we wouldn't have to talk about cannabis, but here we are. So, on August 22nd, 2023, Stearns County adopted an ordinance prohibiting the use of cannabis in public places and places of public accommodation within Stearns County. There is a Stearns County that takes into consideration state law, and then as a local entity, you can adopt your own. And some communities have chosen to do that. That really just falls in step with what the county did. And part of that is so that the communities themselves can collect the fees. And I will let Scott kind of go through administrative fees, which I think would be the way that you would want to do it if you choose to go that route. Sorry.
And I would say that, I looked at the county ordinance that you were provided and compared that to Sauk Center's ordinance and the sample proposed for Melrose, and they're basically identical. It's, and for that matter, it's not like it's the Wild West of Melrose. As we sit here now, the county's ordinance is in place, so we would have the same rules. It's just that it's a tag under the Melrose ordinance if there's a fine, or if the fine money comes back to Melrose. The one suggestion I had considered is we do have administrative fines, and where they did an administrative tag paid rather than getting the citation or paid. And I would, suggest that council gives some consideration to making a violation. If you adopt your own cannabis use ordinance, consider making it payable underneath it as an administrative. And I don't know that we're going to get a lot of these violations, but if you do, it might make everyone's life a little easier than something the person who just put directly to Melrose would have done, rather than scheduling the court date on the same route. We're not asking you to take any action to adopt an ordinance tonight. That's just ideas to think about.
Okay. Questions?
I like the concept of administrative fines. I know we looked at even for other tickets, speeding tickets. We researched that 15 years ago, I think, or 10 years ago, because we stop somebody, pull them over, give them a speeding ticket, we get like 8 cents out of that ticket comes back to Melrose, and the state takes the rest. Well, it's our resources that are, our resources are taking the time to write those tickets, and we don't get anything.
And I think you would still have, the officers would have the discretion to take it as, charge it out as a criminal.
Right.
matter.
Repeat offenders.
If you've got a repeat offender,
Right.
maybe they need more than an administrative fine to get their attention.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know who that would be. Joe?
At this point, we're not asking you without the.
Yeah, we're just starting to think about it.
Yeah, we're just starting with this.
Okay.
All right. So, the action item is to call for a public hearing to regulate the use of cannabis in public places and places in public accommodation. Said hearing would be held at the next council meeting on October 19th, 2023. Do we have any questions or concerns? I probably will not be at that meeting, and I know we have.
Myself also.
Yeah.
Oh, is that?
So there
it's
might
MEA
be two
weekend.
That's
people.
MEA, yeah.
Yeah.
We
Maybe
talked
it-
about, we can have that as an agenda item. We talked about changing that to the day before, if that helps.
It won't for me.
Wednesday.
Otherwise, yeah, we'll have to look at a different date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then I would.
Maybe the following week or something.
Yeah.
I know I have class training at Thursday and Friday, 2 weeks in a row, so that week and the week before. So anything before that, or I
The
can
week
make work.
before probably would be fine.
Yeah, I can look at that, schedule something.
So the regular council meeting would be held on October 19th, and if we are not going to have a quorum, or that's going to be tough because it's MEA, we could potentially look at the 12th. I don't see that as an issue from a public hearing standpoint, that we could potentially do it then unless there's something else coming up that I'm not aware of. I don't think so.
That's, I want to interrupt, that's the BP open forum, which obviously you can, for the candidates for the school board.
Oh,
Here.
Yeah,
that's right.
right.
Thank you for that, Carrie.
I haven't heard the time. Probably 6.
Yeah.
I think it was
I think it was
6 or 7.
Otherwise, then you would be looking the week after, which is the 20, no, can't do that.
Right.
That's the public workshop for the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, you're right.
All right.
We'll get
Well,
some dates too.
Yeah,
How
get
about
some
that?
dates, otherwise, you know.
Maybe some people would hang around for a public hearing then. Huh?
Yeah.
Otherwise,
So I
Not a lot
think,
of
yeah,
people
if
show
we
up.
just, Patty, you just give us text and see what days work, okay? Yeah, okay. So then we will bypass that one for right now. Riverside Flats Resolution Number 2023-57, resolution approving Second Amendment to Development Agreement, Assignment and Development Agreement, and Deferred Payment Loan Agreement of the deferral. So, yeah, who wants to talk on that one? Is there any questions, Scott?
And I think, what's driving this is it's time to get the private money into the project. And so there's some of the items, in that resolution, we can expect that when the private bank financing comes in order to get that in place, that bank's going to want to have their mortgage against the property in the first place. Right now, we've got this deferred payment loan, which if everything works out, just zeroes out. And it's, the scope of a project like that, it's only 275. And I think that's not an unusual request. Banks, when it comes to collateral, they want to grab everything that they can possibly find. And one of the things that's out there is, we're committed to the TIF payments. We were expecting that those TIF payments will go to the developer. But if they default, and the bank takes over the property, the bank wants, assurances that, those TIF payments will keep coming, which we know is just a question of who do we give the money to. So that I would anticipate that there would be an agreement that we'd be asked to consent if there was a default, we just send the payments directly to the bank rather than sending it to the developer and then the bank checks out. And so, again, that's not something that strikes me as unusual or an odd request. Now, these documents we anticipate will be here shortly, but we don't have them tonight. So that part of the resolution, we're asking you to authorize the mayor, the city clerk to sign those when they come in, as opposed to holding it up until the October meeting, whenever that may be. If you recall, as part of the closing on Granite City, we had our development agreements and business subsidies running to, the developer, but then when they got ready to put their final financing in place, they set up a separate holding company for this property. And we're seeing the same thing next door. Where the developer has set up a separate holding company. They're going to transfer their interests, in these subsidies to the new company, and that needs to be the city consent. We did that, I think, at the last meeting for the other project, and now it's coming around for this project. And so again, that's nothing that strikes me as unusual. We could anticipate all that coming. There is also in there, I think, asking for some amendments to the development agreement. And we've been spending some time the last week or so trying to track down, and I think the agreement that's in place, as near as I can tell, doesn't really affect or reflect the intent of the city and the developer. There's a question about the interest rates, and we went back to Tracy Ryan and we're looking at business subsidy hearing all along the way. We were talking, the interest on the TIF at 7.5. That's what everybody had agreed to. It's probably just a typo, I think, in the documents that got signed, it says 4.5. And I think that's just fair. There was, I think, always an expectation that once they started digging over there was going to be surprises. And there were. We found some bad soils and debris, and it's increased the cost of cleaning the site and get it ready to be developed. And we did in the preliminary drafts, and this was discussed again in the business subsidy meeting, say, yeah, we know that's out there, and we're going to have to adjust and then reimburse for cleaning it up. Otherwise, we got the project. Again, in the early drafts, we had specific language saying that. That language got dropped out. And so we're just kind of going through clarifying that, yeah, these additional site cleanup costs will be recoverable under TIF.
That I don't recall. We discussed that? I thought it was, okay.
The
Just wanna make
concern,
sure.
if I can, Mike can talk to this too. The concern was, remember, we didn't want to get stuck as a city, like we were selling it as is, but
Yeah.
as part of the negotiation, we said they could add that to the TIF cost for the
Oh,
cleanup.
good.
Yep. Because the concern was, from a city perspective, we don't know what's there, and if you remember, we did have the conversation about the environmental, and because of the unknown, we didn't want that necessarily coming back to us. So we wrote it into the language with the developer so that they
Right.
can add it as additional TIF expenses.
Okay. That qualifies for TIF?
The environmental does, yep.
Okay.
The rehab TIF.
Yes, that is correct. I mean, it was in the draft too of language, and because I, as a developer, didn't know what was there, didn't want to purchase it without some way to, figure out a way to do it. And through the TIF stream, basically made both sides, yep, that'll work, and that was in there. And then now, unfortunately, we did find stuff, and so, those costs now are starting to add up, and so it's, reviewing through how that gets, reimbursed through the city and covered in terms of costs and the rest of that. All of a sudden it was like, hey, wait a minute, this language all of a sudden was omitted in the final draft, and I don't know where, how, whatever, but we're here just to try and clean that up. One of the other items that's in there's a couple places that talks about approximately 5,000 square feet of retail commercial space. And then there's a line item that says at least 5,000 square feet of commercial retail space. What is the definition of commercial retail space, in terms of where we're trying to get to is the approximately, because, I interpret that to be include the restrooms that are needed, mechanical rooms, common area spaces, because it's all part of, you can't have that without that. And then our actual purely rentable space right now is 4517 square feet, and so either I have to start redesigning stuff right now or just come to that approximate, because that was, like I said, the language was, it varied depending where you read it in the documents.
That's it, start taking the crane down.
Yeah, it is the 5 spaces that we originally had always intended.
Right.
There was early on in the project, trying to meet the dimensions, we shrunk the width of the building a little bit, and that obviously that trimmed some of that is where it is. I would way rather have the 5,000 because it hits my pro forma long term, but I mean, it is what it is, where it is, we'll work through it,
So it sounds like whatever documents were signed, I'll be honest with you, it sounds like they were very muddy, or just kind of.
There were a couple of omissions on my end. I didn't use my regular attorney because there was some potential conflict with the city and past use of that attorney. And my attorney I had hired didn't do
the job I expect on my end of it. And, you know, that's been changed now, and so now we're finding those,
Right.
you know, those items out along with, hey, wait, I know we wrote this in here, and I went and I'm like, nobody can find the language on the amended detail, so.
But we do have a public hearing that was sent to the council today that had that language in there. So at the public hearing, just a note that you received an email from today from Sheila, that transcript of that public hearing did have it correctly in there.
Okay.
Just so we're all on board with that.
Yeah. It's a little, you know, we have nothing in front of us. We can't see
Well, here,
what's changing, what's.
Here, I can bring it up really quick.
We just want to make sure it doesn't substantially change what the city's agreement is, if that makes sense. So, right.
Honestly, I mean, obviously I'm biased on the one side, but to me, this is bringing it to what the agreement and the terms were all the way through that we were talking about. And somehow we're slightly changed going into the final draft. And you know, I was reading it, I didn't catch that.
Okay.
So I will read this. This is from the Business Subsidy Public Hearing Summary for Riverside Development Group LLC. Item number 2, Development Agreement for Riverside Development Group LLC. Basic terms are up to 12 years or reimbursable of eligible expenses, eligible costs plus 7.5% interest, whichever occur first, with TIF pay-as-you-go assistance, no income restrictions. Start date shall be dependent upon environmental clearances with completion within 1 year. $643,000 of fire remediation grant funds, an estimated fire remediation sales tax exemption of $175,000. City to increase TIF assistance if there are unforeseen site cleanup costs, payable solely with available increments, and city agrees to sponsor support any applications for further site cleanup if needed. Business subsidy is repayable based upon number of units completed if all goals are not met. City to reinvest land proceeds in project through a deferred loan with no repayment if all terms of development agreement are satisfied. So it was talked about at the hearing summary, and you received that today. But the summary that we did, that was, I believe the public hearing was held either October or November of last year. November, yeah.
Is that a council meeting?
So, yeah, like I say.
I must not have been there.
It doesn't change the overall amounts. I mean, it's still tied to the TIF.
Right.
And, you know, one of the alternative to having the developer take care of the cleanup would be the city does the cleanup as the owner, so that it's ready to be done. And we would have been fronting these costs instead of the developer fronting them, and then kind of paying over time, you know, for the TIF. And I think that the fact that there's bad soils there, I don't think should be a surprise. I was wondering for the Historical Society's history of Melrose, and this is the 4th and 5th development on that site. And as the old ones came down and the new ones went up, what it was to do. The last one, there was a fire, what ended up in the hole, before it got covered up. It just, it was back into the site, this way. Developers want the costs,
Are the costs line itemed out?
Yes.
Well, are they kept track of? We know what we're on the hook for through TIF?
They're documented today.
Okay.
That's where that gets supplied.
And does this,
$165,000.
So far, yeah. And this is well under what the appraisal for the TIF was, so we're not even getting close in terms of the agreement.
okay.
So really, we
Yeah.
ran into, I guess, 2 types of contamination, I'll call it. You know, we had roughly 3,500 yards of material that got excavated in the hole. We had 500 to 700 yards that were, had petroleum and I think it was benzene that was in that soil that they, they tested for it and everything else. That material has to get hauled to the Vonco hazardous waste landfill and everything else. So, and then the remaining material, most of that had to get ran through a screen to remove glass bottles, bricks, concrete footings, all kinds of different things. And then that material got brought, used back on site for backfill. And then the other material gets hauled to probably the Tom Kramer pit for construction demolition material. So we've been trying to manage the best we can in terms of limiting what has to go where and everything else, but that's what we're bringing to.
We use some landscaping and parking lots, that feels, I didn't know.
Yeah. So this does this increase the length of the TIF, or it's all captured by the TIF as part of the TIF agreement?
Correct.
When the TIF note gets signed, they did the input, they'll get 90%. The city keeps 10, and we make 24 payments. It's a 12-year district.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay, and that's what's paying for the additional cleanup, okay. I just want to make sure like we're not going to get stuck with
To a certain
an
extent,
additional, payments. And,
taking a risk there too,
Right.
because, our payment is capped at this 90% over 12 years, and if the project doesn't pencil out the way we think, we will. That's across the eight.
right. Okay.
All right, council to give consideration to adopt resolution number 2023-57, resolution approving second amendment of the development agreement. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay. First and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion is carried.
Thank you, Mayor, council staff.
No problem. Thank you, it looks really nice over there.
Yeah.
We're flying along, it's
Yeah.
exciting.
It is exciting. All right, so we are on to Parks and Recreation Board spending limits.
So every year, the city council sets a budget for the Park and Rec Board. This is a transfer from the general fund. The park board then utilizes these funds to, do signage, benches, picnic tables, etc. Larger items such as playgrounds, parkland acquisition, trails are separate from the park board budget. For some reason, several years ago, there was a cap put on their spending at $5,000. And as far as I know, they're the only folks that have this because everyone else follows what our purchasing cap is, which is $10,000. So the request is just to ask if the park board could increase their, granted, but keep in mind, this is in their budget, what they have, but just not have to come back to the council for every 5,000 request. But if they could increase to 10,000, because if they buy 3 benches or 2 picnic tables or 3 picnic tables, 3 or 4 benches, they're way over, they're over that 5,000. So they would just like that to be 10,000, which would be consistent with internal purchasing policy of 10,000. Your park board is really your only group that has a budget that they get to work with. MATA does too, but it's kind of funded a little differently, so.
Yeah, and I know I did talk with the Parks and Rec Board to Justin Freeler. He was very strongly wanting to have that happen, just because they don't want to have to wait and wait. They meet more infrequently than other boards. And Jolene, what do you think? You're on the Parks and Rec Board. What?
Yeah, they already had talked about this 2 years ago when I was on the board, and I would have to agree
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah, for it.
So our internal,
No, go ahead.
you talk, it's more in line with our internal spending limits. You have the authority to spend 10,000. What is Gary's spending limit as a department head? 3,000. we have department heads that cannot spend as much as the Parks Board. The Park Board has a $30,000 a year transfer to the Park Board. It was never set at lowered to $5,000. They never had an endless spending limit. They never had any spending authority. They lobbied for spending authority about 6-7 years ago. Everything came through the council. I don't see any, well, besides Jolene, obviously, you're on the Parks Board, but in my opinion, there should be a Parks Board, whoever the chair of the Parks Board is, at this meeting making this request.
And that is Justin.
Right.
Couldn't
Oh,
be
he's
here.
the chair?
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting.
I'm
The
not
council
on-
member is the
I'm-
chair of the Parks Board. I think there should
Yeah,
be
and I'm
a
not on there.
at-large member of the community as the chair. I don't know, it just seems a little counter.
The vice chair of the second in command is Craig, right?
Craig Schiffler.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're elected. Part of our election duties, or being elected, is to keep tabs on where the money's going. If the Park Board has $10,000, when's the last time we saw a report on what this Park Board, a report where they come here and they say, hey, this is what we've all done over the last year. That is telling the public what the Park Board's doing. I think there should be a rep here, a different, other than council members here making that request, so we can challenge them on that. Me personally, because obviously you guys think it's a good idea, but I think that the voters might have a different opinion on what boards we give spending authority to, because the voters don't see it at all. I mean, we might see it, might be in a report we get, but the voters don't hear about what the Park Board wants to do, typically, unless they're watching a council member meeting, or they go to a Park Board meeting. The Park Board members are interested residents, typically. We don't have any non-residents as members, do we? Of the Park Board?
Yeah.
Just appointed? Okay. But I think,
He's appointed because he was a Madam member.
okay. But I think 5,000 is plenty for a non-elected board that doesn't have a very large budget to give them spending authority. I think 5,000 is enough. Because otherwise they are an authority. Like MATA is an authority, they can go buy land. I think 5,000 is enough without having council approval. And there's nothing, I think, on the Parks Board that can't wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month for a council meeting to get approved. So, planning and zoning can't pass ordinances by themselves. Everything has to come through the council. That's why we're here. So we can challenge stuff. More work for us, but I'm okay with that. But, back to you.
Okay.
I don't know, I served on the board and I guess I have to side with them, so I make the motion.
Okay, there's a motion been made. I take it you're not gonna second it?
Nope.
Okay, then I will second it. So a motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carried. It's okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we have to go through the informational items, and then we have a closed session. So the informational items are the utility commission meeting minutes and schools and conferences that were done this past month. And then we will have to close the meeting, so we like to ask everybody to please, we'll have to leave.